Welcome to this explainer. If you're a focused learner looking to literally crack the code on exactly how the Project Management Institute expects an Agile project leader to think, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're diving into the 15 Agile mindset principles for PMP success, and trust me, this is going to save you from pulling your hair out on exam day.
Okay, let's dive into this. You know that feeling when you're looking at a PMP exam question and you just think, wow, literally all of these answers seem right? Well, there is a reason for that. The exam doesn't just test if you've memorized dry processes, formulas, or definitions. It throws these incredibly tricky situational dilemmas at you, usually ending with that one terrifying question: what should the project manager do next? To get this right, you really have to understand that the correct answer depends entirely on your mindset. To lower the cognitive load and give you a really structured strategy for both your exam and your real-world projects, we've grouped these 15 distinct principles into 5 highly digestible pillars. We're going to cover the PMP mindset shift, empower and coach teams, deliver true customer value, optimize workflow and communication, and finally, the Agile decision formula. Let's kick things off right away with pillar number 1, the PMP mindset shift. Passing the PMP really requires a fundamental paradigm shift in how you view leadership. It's all about becoming what we call a servant leader. This is a leader who supports the team, removes obstacles, facilitates discussions, protects against interruptions, and just generally creates an environment for success. Think about it like this. Say your development team is stuck. They can't finish an important feature because they're waiting for access to a testing environment. A servant leader doesn't walk in and demand they just work harder, right? Instead, they roll up their sleeves and go work with other departments to actually remove that barrier so the team can keep moving forward. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how directly it contrasts with our natural, sort of old-school instincts. A traditional boss assigns tasks, controls every decision, and commands. But a servant leader, they facilitate and empower. When you're sitting for that exam, always look for the answer where the project manager is supporting the team or removing a barrier, not where they are trying to command and control. And that perfectly leads us into coaching versus commanding. Let's paint a picture here. Imagine 2 of your top team members are having a massive disagreement over how to tackle a technical task. A command and control manager might just step in, pick a side, and dictate an immediate solution to get it over with. But an agile leader, they coach. They'd bring those 2 members together, review the acceptance criteria, and collaboratively evaluate the options. Because commanding just creates long-term dependency, whereas coaching builds real capability and guides them toward team-led solutions. Moving right along to section 2, empower and coach teams. This is where we focus on developing the team's capability rather than just handing them an instruction manual for every little situation. The core idea here is that Agile teams are self-organizing. You have to let the people closest to the work solve their own problems. And to do that effectively, you need to understand their individual motivations, like autonomy, learning, and growth, and you've got to lead with total integrity. For instance, if a really experienced team member is suddenly checking out and acting disengaged, micromanaging them or offering a tiny little reward isn't going to fix it. They likely value autonomy. You need to trust them and offer them that autonomy to get them back on track. But, empowerment is absolutely useless without psychological safety. This is an environment where people can raise concerns, admit mistakes, ask questions, and disagree without being terrified of punishment or humiliation. If a developer spots a design flaw that might crash system performance later, they must feel totally safe raising that red flag immediately. The team has to be able to inspect and adapt without turning it into a witch hunt. So, on the exam, automatically eliminate any answer that involves punishing or publicly blaming a team member. That brings us to our third pillar, deliver true customer value. Agile success isn't about producing a massive stack of documents or rigidly following a plan. It's about delivering actual useful benefits to the customer. And when it comes to deciding what gets delivered first, there is a golden rule. The product owner makes the final prioritization decision. This is a huge trap on the exam. Let's say a senior stakeholder swoops in and loudly demands a brand new feature right this second. The project manager shouldn't just say yes and bypass established roles to keep the peace. You have to respect the product owner. It's literally their job to weigh customer value, business needs, and the product vision to order that backlog appropriately. So the crucial point is you cannot consistently deliver value without a shared understanding of what success actually looks like. Conflict always blows up when developers think a feature is done just because the code is written, but the product owner is standing there expecting testing, documentation, and customer acceptance too. That proves exactly why having a clear product vision, business objectives, acceptance criteria, and a shared definition of done is absolutely vital. All right, Section 4, optimize workflow and communication. This is all about how the work actually gets done on a daily basis without falling into functional silos or hitting nasty bottlenecks. In Agile, you really want to prefer direct communication over those endless, painfully long email chains. Encourage cross-functional collaboration and make all the work highly visible on a Kanban or task board. Imagine a tester finds a recurring defect. The worst thing they could do is write up a formal report and toss it back over the wall to the developers. No way. The tester and developer need to collaborate directly to find the root cause together and use their visual boards to easily spot if testing is becoming a bottleneck. And speaking of bottlenecks, we have to talk about work in progress, or WIP. WIP is simply the number of task items a team is actively working on at any given second. Here's a harsh Agile truth. Starting more work absolutely does not mean completing more work. In fact, having too many things in progress usually just leads to constant task switching, endless delays, and terrible quality.
That is exactly why you have to limit work in progress to improve focus, flow, and predictability. If an exam question tells you a team has 10 unfinished features and then asks what to do next, starting an 11th feature is 100% the wrong answer. The right move is to spot the bottleneck, collaborate on those unfinished items, and actually move the valuable work across the finish line first.
To keep everything flowing beautifully, teams rely on continuous improvement via retrospectives. Don't wait until the entire project is over to learn your lessons. Regularly ask the team, what went well? What didn't go well? What should we change? And what experiment should we try next? The whole point is to regularly inspect and adapt so you can apply practical, actionable improvements in the very next iteration. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, the Agile Decision Formula. Think of this as your ultimate cheat code for eliminating wrong answers on the exam. And this brilliantly illustrates how to navigate those tricky scenarios. Whenever you're stuck staring at a question where two answers both look perfectly correct, run them through these 7 situational questions. Does it empower the team? Does it deliver customer value? Does it encourage collaboration? Does it remove an impediment? Increase transparency? Support continuous improvement? Does it build trust? It's like a filtering system. The answer that checks these boxes is practically always your winning choice. It also really pays off to know the vocabulary of the exam. Look for green flag words like facilitate, coach, empower, and collaborate. Run away from red flag actions like commanding, blaming, punishing, or micromanaging. And notice how immediate escalation is right there in the red flag column. While escalating a major issue is sometimes needed in the real world, on the exam it is rarely your very first move. Always look for the green flag action of communicating directly and supporting your team first. Let's move to and see how this builds into a beautifully simple 5-step sequence that really sums up the whole Agile mindset the PMI expects from you. 1. Empower people. 2. Collaborate effectively. 3. Deliver value. 4. Inspect and adapt. 5. Repeat continuously. If your actions align with these steps, you're totally on the right track. Because at the end of the day, Agile isn't just a bunch of fancy meetings and sticky notes on a Kanban board. It is a fundamental way of thinking and serving your team. Think Agile, lead better, deliver value. It's that simple and it's that powerful. So, I'm going to leave you with one final provocative question to ask yourself on your very next project. Which response best empowers your team, protects customer value, and builds trust today? Stop trying to just memorize dry processes. Start applying this exact mindset, and you'll crush it. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep leading with agility.